Bonsoir, mesdames et messieurs, cher Bernard. Désolé, mais je vais parler en anglais. Pardon. Until recently, when I was asked about my identity, I would answer first Israeli and then Jewish. As someone who grew up and was educated in Israel in the 70s, the word Jew or the concept of being Jewish are associated with distant history. In Israel, we use the word sabra, which means a native Israeli. We don't need, Judaism is more about tradition and the history of persecuted people. It was unthinkable for my generation that grew up on Israel's victories with an undefeated army, how our people were led to slaughter like sheep. And we Israelis, the suburbs, we thought, well, this can't happen to us, not here. Beyond being Israelis, with one of the strongest armies, air forces in the world, we perceived ourselves as part of the big world, part of the West, family of nations. No longer a wandering and persecuted people, but a nation with a state and an army, the only democracy in the Middle East. Antisémitism was remote from us, and we never thought we could be attacked on our own land. Now, I consider myself liberal, a peace seeker who opposes the occupation and advocates for the two-state solution. But I was always proud of being Israeli. In the last 10 years, there has been a turning point. As an actor and director whose films are shown at festivals around the world, I began to feel a change. Outside the cinemas where we screened my films and at Israeli Jewish film festivals throughout Europe, there were demonstrations, people protesting against the screening of Israeli films. I must tell you, this is an unpleasant experience that is occasionally followed by the throwing of an egg of a rotten tomato. But it was a news item for me, something to tell to my friends when I'm back home. And then, October 7th came. That terrible morning when we experienced the massacre of 1,400 babies, children, women, men, and the elderly people being murdered, burned, tortured, and raped just because they were Jews. And the world, the family of nations of which we thought we part, did not condemn the massacre. Sometimes even justified it or denied it ever happened. With the escalation of the war in Gaza, in attempt to return the remaining Israelis still held hostages by Hamas, the voices and demonstrations against Israelis grew louder and turned to voices of hatred against Jews. This is the first time I have experienced rejection because I'm Israeli and Jewish. The first time I have understood what it means to be Jewish. Since October 7th, I've been hearing from friends and family around the world stories that seems to have been taken from the last century. Mezuzahs are moved inside the house. Jewish symbols are hidden when going out to the street. Even me, I'm not talking Hebrew when I'm going the street abroad. Until recently, I didn't feel the need to define myself through nationalism. I didn't feel the need to define myself at all. I'm a patriot. It's inherent in me, and it's natural for me. But in the last 8 months, these values are become more important for me than ever before. I am a Jew and an Israeli patriot. Thank you. Since the disaster, I have developed an understanding of the importance of the existence of the country I was born, the State of Israel, or as Herzl, the visionary of the state, called it, the Jewish state. Because in addition to being a democratic, pluralistic state that does not discriminate between race, religion, and gender, and for the past year and a half, we have been fighting, demonstrating, and protesting that it remains so because of our extreme government. The State of Israel is the only safe home for the Jewish nation. That same persecuted nation is still being persecuted. We must not allow the world to make connection between our internal problems, which we will solve in a democratic way, and the growing anti-Semitism and persecution of Jews around the world. I'm hopeful that the world will wake up soon to stop this alarming violence before it spreads and invades the West. And as I see it, from my point of view as a Jew and Israeli, the West is next. Thank you very much.